Iran claims to have targeted a U.S. aircraft carrier. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps say they have attacked USS Abraham Lincoln. The IRGC claims to have launched 4 ballistic missiles towards the 100,000-ton nuclear-powered supercarrier.
April 1st, 2026, 4:31 a.m. Strait of Hormuz. In this scenario, Iranian forces have just launched a coordinated strike on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, 1 Fattah-1 hypersonic missile, 4 anti-ship cruise missiles, 10 attack drones, multiple impacts, American casualties, fire on the flight deck, damage to an escort, and before the smoke has even settled over the carrier's island, the retaliation package is already airborne. 6 minutes from first confirmed hit to a response so violent, so comprehensive, and so precisely prepared that Iran's entire coastal strike architecture begins disappearing from the map before its commanders can even leave their bunkers. The water is still black before dawn, the kind of black that makes the horizon vanish. Oil tankers move like dim, floating shadows. Navigation lights blink red and green across the shipping lane. The sea is calm, but the tension is not. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, cuts through that darkness at operational speed. 190 feet of beam, more than 1,000 feet of steel, 4 catapults, an embarked air wing built to own the sky, nearly 5,000 sailors, aviators, and support personnel aboard a warship designed not just to survive battle, but to finish it. On the flight deck, crews are preparing for the first launch cycle of the morning. In Pryfly, voices move fast but calm. Radar operators sweep the air picture. Electronic warfare specialists watch the spectrum for irregular emissions. 2 Super Hornets circle above the strike group on combat air patrol, armed and alert. A guided missile cruiser shadows the carrier's starboard side. 2 destroyers form the outer shield. Somewhere deeper in the water, an American submarine tracks every signal, every wake, every engine note it can find. Everything looks controlled. Everything looks measured. And in less than 10 minutes, Iran is going to learn the difference between hitting first and surviving what comes second. If you want the full truth, hit like right now so this story reaches more people who still do not understand what happens when a carrier strike group gets pushed past the limit. The Eisenhower strike group carries enough combat power to break the military backbone of a regional power in a single morning. Her escorts are packed with vertical launch cells holding SM-series interceptors, Tomahawks, anti-submarine weapons, and electronic warfare support systems. Her air wing can project force hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Her sensors feed a shared battlefield picture across sea, air, and space. But raw power alone is not the point. The point is timing. The point is readiness. The point is whether an enemy can find the one moment where fatigue, geography, and compression of time create a narrow opening. Iran has spent years studying that opening. Iranian planners know the architecture of American carrier defense. They know about layered interception zones. They know radar horizons. They know how escorts distribute sectors of fire. They know the difference between a ballistic profile and a sea-skimming approach. They know that even the best defense can be stressed if enough threats arrive at once from multiple vectors. So the plan is simple in design and brutal in execution. Use a Fattah-1 hypersonic missile to force the defense into its highest priority intercept cycle. Then push cruise missiles low over the water. Then send attack drones through the confusion, through the clutter, through the seconds when decision loops are overloaded and every screen is full. The sequence begins at 4:31 a.m. Iranian tracking teams positioned across the coast have been monitoring the Eisenhower for hours using radar, passive collection, maritime observation posts, and drone shadowing from standoff distance. A mobile launcher receives final coordinates. The Fattah-1 ignites. The missile climbs, accelerates, and disappears into the upper atmosphere on a maneuvering hypersonic profile. Seconds later, 4 anti-ship cruise missiles fire from dispersed coastal positions. 40 seconds after that, 10 drones launch from 3 separate sites, riding low and fast over the waterline toward the strait. Different speeds, different altitudes, different angles, one attack clock. The strike group detects the ballistic signature almost immediately. Alarms sound, battle stations, voices harden, interceptors rise from the escorts in white streaks, punching upward into the dark. The Combat Information Center turns into pure mathematics and adrenaline. Distances collapse. Flight paths update. Intercept windows shrink. The first cruise missile dies in a bright flash over the water. The second is jammed, wobbles, and crashes short. A drone breaks apart under close-in fire. Then the Fattah-1 begins its terminal maneuver, changing line, changing speed, forcing the defensive envelope to recalculate in fractions of a second. 2 intercept attempts come close. Close is not enough. At 4:35 a.m., the hypersonic missile slams into the Eisenhower's forward flight deck area just off the starboard side, punching through steel and detonating below the surface level. The blast rips through maintenance spaces and sends a sheet of flame across the deck edge. Aircraft shrapnel, burning fuel, hydraulic mist, and shattered gear explode into the air. 1 helicopter is destroyed instantly. 2 strike fighters are damaged beyond repair. The shockwave throws sailors off their feet across multiple sections. Internal lighting cuts out in 1 compartment block. Fire suppression kicks in, but not fast enough to stop the first wall of smoke. And that is exactly when the rest of the package arrives. 2 of the remaining cruise missiles are intercepted, but not before forcing the destroyers to commit more of their attention away from the drones. 1 missile clips the sea, skips, and crashes into the portside sponson area, detonating against structural plating and showering fragments across the deck edge. The last cruise missile misses the carrier and slams into one of the escorts, blowing open a section near the forward superstructure and killing sailors on the bridge wing. Of the 10 drones, 6 are shot down. 4 get through. 1 hits the island, spraying burning debris across communications gear. 1 hits a parked aircraft. 2 slam into the damaged destroyer within seconds of each other. In less than 5 minutes, the toll is catastrophic. 19 American sailors are dead. 71 are wounded. The Eisenhower is burning, no but afloat. 1 destroyer is damaged hard but still combat capable. The carrier's deck crew is fighting fire while the task force is still clearing the air picture for follow-on threats. The attack is not enough to sink an American carrier. It is enough to trigger something Iran's leadership did not believe would move this fast. You are Aviation Ordnanceman 2nd Class Daniel Mercer, 24 years old, from Mobile, Alabama. You joined because your father welded ships and told you steel means nothing without the people inside it. This morning, before dawn, you were checking munitions safety pins and thinking about the coffee you never finished. Then the deck bucked like the ship had hit a mountain. The lights snapped. Someone screamed your name and you could not even tell from which direction. Training takes over before fear does. You grab emergency gear. You move toward heat that no sane person would move toward. There is smoke everywhere. The air tastes like metal, fuel, and burned wiring. Somewhere close by, someone is calling for a corpsman. Somewhere else, a fire main has ruptured. This is what war actually sounds like when it stops being theory. Comment on or below. If you believe the men and women on that flight deck deserved more than headlines after what hit them in the dark. Now here is what Iran did not know, what it could not see from launch sites and coastal command posts. 9 months before this morning, after repeated Iranian harassment patterns in the Strait, U.S. Central Command finalized a contingency retaliation package for exactly this event. Not a generic response, not a rough framework, a fully built strike architecture, pre-selected aim points, or preloaded routes, weapons assigned by platform, electronic warfare corridors planned in advance, simultaneous target timing calculated down to seconds. The package had a name, Operation Iron Scepter. Its purpose was simple. If a confirmed hostile strike from Iranian territory killed American personnel aboard a U.S. naval vessel in the Strait of Hormuz, the response would not wait for a televised debate, a day-long policy meeting, or a window for the enemy to relocate. The retaliation would be immediate, automatic at the theater level, and designed to erase the entire chain that made the attack possible. Radars, command nodes, hypersonic support sites, drone launch pads, missile depots, naval facilities, communications relays, fuel farms, underground coordination bunkers. Them 43 targets tied directly to Iran's anti-ship kill chain in the region. The authorization threshold had already been signed. At 4:37 a.m., 2 minutes after the hypersonic impact, the strike release message reaches 5 American platforms almost simultaneously. A guided missile submarine in the Arabian Sea receives it first. A second submarine farther east confirms execution. A destroyer still inside the Eisenhower screen begins its Tomahawk sequence, even while damage control teams work nearby. 2 B-2 Spirit bombers already on station receive final aim point confirmation for hardened underground facilities. In the air, Super Hornets from the Eisenhower's own air wing are rerouted from defensive posture to retaliatory strike assignment, while tankers and electronic warfare assets reshape the battle space around them. Type yes if you want to see every Iranian target that gets hit in the next few minutes, because this is where the story stops looking like retaliation and starts looking like total systems collapse. From release order to last major weapon away, 6 minutes, 4 seconds. The first American missiles break the water at 4:39 a.m. Tomahawks rise from submerged launch tubes, arc, level out, and race north. More follow in disciplined sequence, each already matched to a target set that has been living inside mission computers for months. The B-2S continue inbound under emission control. Super Hornets carrying long-range standoff missiles accelerate toward their launch points. Electronic attack aircraft flood selected sectors with jamming. Data links update mid-course guidance. The strike does not feel improvised because it is not improvised. It is a machine switching on. By 4:43, more than 150 precision-guided weapons are in the air. Some are hunting radar emissions. Some are driving toward fixed bunkers. Some are assigned to mobile support positions last updated hours earlier by American surveillance. Others are headed for coastal naval infrastructure that has been mapped, remapped, and wargamed into digital certainty. Different launch platforms, different flight paths. One outcome: Iran's ability to do this again is about to be cut apart in a single synchronized wave. The first impacts begin at 4:47, Bandar Abbas Aerospace Coordination Center. This is the nerve hub that fused tracking data, launcher status, and coastal targeting support for the morning strike. The bunker is hardened, buried, and ringed with redundant communications lines. Yeah, it does not matter. Two bunker-penetrating weapons arrive almost on top of each other. The first opens the structure, the second goes through that wound and detonates inside the operations level. Power dies. Consoles disappear in dust and pressure. Communications to multiple subordinate missile elements go silent at once. The officers who monitored the Eisenhower's damage feed do not survive long enough to issue a second order. Fattah-1 Hypersonic Support Site. This is where transporter vehicles, fueling equipment, and guidance support systems for the Fattah-1 package are staged. Cruise missiles reach it from different bearings so that surviving personnel have no clean direction to run. Launch vehicles flip, burn, and scatter across the revetments. A maintenance shelter takes a direct hit and collapses inward. Light secondary detonations tear through stored support equipment. Fire climbs above the shoreline and turns the whole site into a beacon visible far across the water. Bandar Jask Anti-Ship Regiment. The cruise missile batteries that fed the low-altitude attack are still displacing, crews trying to move before counter-battery intelligence closes in. They are too late. Tomahawks slam into launcher hides, rearm trucks, ready racks, and nearby command vans within seconds of one another. A fuel storage point catches, then detonates. The blast front rolls across the position and turns vehicles into black frames. A regiment built over years loses combat function in less than a minute. Now, share this video so more people understand what preloaded retaliation really means when the target is an American carrier, and the response was waiting before the first missile ever launched. Kish Island Long-Range Radar Array goes next. This site helped stitch together the maritime picture that made the strike possible. The array itself vanishes in the opening hits. Then the control building is cut apart. Backup generators, relay towers, satellite uplink equipment, and support vehicles follow. In a matter of moments, a major section of Iran's coastal surveillance picture goes blind. Entire sectors of the strait become dark to the very commanders who were just celebrating a successful hit. Hormuz Sector Naval Command Complex takes a heavier package. This facility coordinates fast attack craft, drone boat patrols, and naval harassment planning inside the strait. The headquarters building absorbs multiple impacts through its front and side faces. Floors collapse into one another. Nearby munitions storage erupts in sympathetic explosions. Pierside fuel ignites in rolling orange columns. Patrol craft tied to the dock burn where they sit, some breaking loose and drifting as flaming wrecks into the harbor basin. The commanders who thought the morning's attack had opened a new chapter now understand they are inside the final page of the old one. 3 separate drone launch corridors along the coast are hit almost simultaneously. These are not just launch pads. They include mobile command vehicles, data relay trucks, spare airframes, maintenance crews, fuel, and short-range defense elements. American weapons do not just target the drones. They target the ecosystem that allows drones to exist as a military tool. One site is still recovering personnel from the launch sequence when missiles arrive. Another never gets a warning at all. At the third, surveillance footage later, shows trucks still parked in orderly rows seconds before the impacts rearrange the entire landscape into a churned field of fire and twisted metal. Deeper inland, communications bunkers tied to the maritime strike network are torn open. An ammunition depot storing anti-ship missile components cooks off for nearly 40 minutes. A Revolutionary Guard barracks linked to coastal launch support takes direct hits before most of its personnel can fully react to the national alert. 2 hardened storage caverns are penetrated and collapsed. 4 secondary radar nodes disappear. A naval aviation support strip is cratered and left unusable. Fuel storage near a missile transport site burns so intensely that satellite imagery later records the heat bloom long after sunrise. The brilliance of the response is not in any one explosion. It is in the sequence. Every major strike element that could restore the network is hit at nearly the same time as the launch and surveillance nodes that made the original attack possible. This is not punishment for its own sake. It is system denial at maximum speed. Iran is not just losing equipment. It is losing the ability to coordinate, to detect, to reload, to reposition, to communicate, to deceive, and to recover. It is losing hours, then days, then months, all in under one operational cycle. By 4:52, the additional standoff missiles from strike aircraft begin arriving on targets that survived the first wave. A coastal bunker near Bandar Lenge is hit again after partial collapse is detected. 2 mobile missile support vehicles trying to escape north are found and destroyed on a service road. A surviving command relay node transmits for less than 90 seconds before electronic support locates it and a follow-up weapon erases it. The message to every Iranian commander in the region is no longer theoretical. There is no second chance in this timeline. There is not even a real first recovery step. If this shocked you, comment thunder below, because this is what modern deterrence looks like once the warning phase is over and the answer is already in the air. Now measure the exchange coldly. Iran fires 15 weapons at 1 American carrier group, 1 Fattah-1 hypersonic missile, 4 cruise missiles, 10 drones. Result: 19 Americans killed, 71 wounded, 1 carrier damaged but afloat and operationally recoverable, 1 destroyer battered but still in the fight. America answers with more than 150 precision weapons against 43 military targets tied directly to the strike chain. Result: an estimated 700 Iranian personnel killed across command, launch, support, and naval facilities. Hypersonic launch support in the coastal sector effectively eliminated. Major anti-ship missile capacity cut down hard. Drone strike infrastructure shattered. Radar coverage across a broad stretch of the strait blinded. Multiple naval sites rendered non-operational. The arithmetic is not just severe, it is instructional. Iran spends minutes creating a spectacle. America spends minutes removing the machinery that made the spectacle possible. And the deeper damage is not counted only in bodies or buildings. Iran has spent years constructing a layered threat system designed to intimidate shipping, pressure neighbors, and hold the strait at strategic risk. Those systems are expensive. They require imported components, trained specialists, protected storage, hardened logistics, and time. Time is the one thing sanctions, surveillance, and follow-on pressure do not easily allow. A launcher destroyed today is not just a launcher lost. It is a long supply chain broken. A trained crew killed today is not just a statistic. It is experience erased. A radar network blinded today is not just temporary darkness. And it is uncertainty injected into every future calculation. The diplomatic cascade follows fast. Tehran claims defensive action. Washington releases position data showing the Eisenhower in international waters at the time of attack. Intercepts are declassified under emergency authority. Launch origin points are mapped. Timestamps line up. Regional capitals get the evidence package before the talking points are finished. Gulf states issue statements condemning the attack on freedom of navigation. Port support is quietly expanded for American repair needs. Insurance markets begin adjusting immediately because everyone in maritime commerce understands what the strait means and what it costs when one side decides to gamble with it. Inside military headquarters across the region, the real lesson is simpler than any press conference. The United States did not improvise under fire. It executed a prepared answer at machine speed. The people who study this exchange are not going to focus only on the size of the retaliation. They are going to focus on its timing. That 6-minute window changes everything. It means the decision space for the attacker is an illusion. Once the first weapon leaves the rail, the counterstrike is already effectively alive, waiting only for legal confirmation and casualty assessment. There is no room left for cleanup, denial, or dispersal. That is what makes Operation Iron Scepter terrifying from the receiving side. It does not just threaten retaliation, it guarantees synchronized self-destruction for the architecture behind the attack. The commander who authorizes a shot at an American carrier is not merely targeting a ship. Remember, he is triggering consequences against his own radars, his own command post, his own fuel lines, his own launch crews, his own naval piers, and very likely his own bunker. The strike against the Eisenhower does not only invite an answer, it activates a chain in which the answer was designed, assigned, and largely loaded before dawn ever came. Back on the carrier, the scene is quieter by comparison, but only because shock can sound like silence between alarms. Fires are being cut off section by section. Casualties are triaged in narrow compartments that still smell of fuel and steam. Helicopters move the most critical wounded once the airspace is secure. Sailors who were joking an hour earlier are now carrying stretchers, sealing ruptured spaces, dragging hose lines, clearing debris, and trying not to look too long at the places where they lost their friends. Damage control is ugly, intimate work. It is not cinematic. It is sweat, noise, smoke, blood, and repetition under exhaustion. Daniel Mercer survives. So do most of the sailors in his section, though not all. One of the chiefs who had drilled them endlessly on casualty response dies trying to get two younger sailors out of a burning passageway. A flight deck firefighter keeps working after taking shrapnel to the arm because the aircraft behind him are fully fueled, and one more flame front could have made the whole deck worse. A corpsman treats the same patient with one hand while holding herself upright against the bulkhead with the other because the ship is still maneuvering hard. And these are the people hidden inside strategic language when analysts say the carrier absorbed the strike. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower eventually turned south under her own power, escorted, scarred, and still unmistakably dangerous. Temporary deck stabilization begins before full sunrise. Repair estimates run months. The dead are honored before the public ever sees their names. Families are notified in person. Flags move at half-staff. Medals will come later. Speeches will come later. What comes first is absence, empty racks, unanswered phones, half-finished messages, people in small American towns opening doors to uniforms they prayed never to see. For Iran, the cost is measured differently, but no less permanently. Entire crews vanish in bunkers they believed were hardened. Facilities built over years become blackened concrete and burning steel before breakfast. Surviving officers are forced to operate inside a region where key sensors are gone, trusted nodes are gone, response routes are exposed, and every remaining launcher suddenly feels like a locator beacon for the next wave. The strait is still there, Iran is still there, but the confidence that its coastal strike network can hit an American carrier and then live with the consequences is gone. That is the real endgame of 6 minutes. Not the explosion, not the headline, not even the casualty count. The endgame is psychological. Every future Iranian commander standing watch near the Strait of Hormuz now knows exactly what pressing the button may purchase. Not prestige, not leverage, not deterrence, immediate devastation, mapped in advance, waiting on legal release. He knows that the missile leaving his rail may be the last successful act his command ever performs. He knows he may not live long enough to hear whether the target sank, because the response will already be inbound to the place he is standing. So ask yourself the question at the center of this whole scenario. If you knew that one Fattah-1 hypersonic missile and a supporting swarm could kill Americans, but would also bring a 6-minute counterstrike onto your own command centers, your own batteries, your own naval bases, your own people, would you still give the order? Would you still risk it for one dramatic hit and one temporary global headline, knowing the bill would arrive before your evacuation vehicle cleared the gate? If you think the response was justified, hit like. If you think it went too far, say so in the comments and explain why. And if you want more high-intensity breakdowns of the strategies, weapons, and split-second decisions that decide who controls the battlefield after the first shot, subscribe right now, because this channel is where those scenarios get unpacked in full.